So when we were adding, subtracting fractions, we need a common denominator. And how do we get a common denominator? Well, we need to multiply the denominators, okay? Find multiples or factors, make the factors match it. So if I want to have thirds here and halves here, if I want to make them the same size piece, I need to group this into groups of 2. And I need to group this into groups of 3. So essentially, I'm going to multiply this by 2's, and I'm going to multiply this by 3's. Okay, so those common groupings allow us to get common denominators. So when we add these together, now we have 1/6 pieces, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/6 pieces. Okay, so we're going to end up with 2 6 1/6 pieces plus 3 1/6 pieces equals 5 1/6 pieces. And we get those with those factors. Okay, I can do this in a fraction circle, I can do this in a fraction bar, I need to do this in groups of 2, and I need to do this in groups of 3. And when I do that, I get a common size piece, which then these fractions now can be counted together. 2 here, 3 here, means I have a total of 5 that are counted. Okay? And it's these common groupings or factors that allow me to do this. So when I find lowest common denominator, what I want to do is see what the factors look like. So when I factor this, I have 2 times 3. Here I'm going to have 3 times 5. Well, what ends up happening is these two sets of denominators have to match each other. So what this guy's missing over here is he's missing a factor of 5. So if I do groups of 5, I'm going to be able to match the groupings of 5 here. I have to still make sure that the numerator is the same, and I can do the same here. This fraction on the right hand side is missing a factor of 2, so he needs that same factor to make this common, but then he needs to also balance the fraction. So once we found the common denominator and balanced the fractions, now we can say that we have a common denominator. In this case, the common denominator works out to be 30. So we have 25 over 30 and 2 over 30, and that gives us 27 over 30, which we can simplify to 9 over 10 because they share a common factor of 3. So it's really important that we look at the factors when we're dealing with rational numbers. So even when we start dealing with putting variables in here, as long as we understand how the process works, that we're really looking at factors, it makes it a little bit easier to understand. So if I want to add these together, I need to get common denominators by making the factors match. So here I've got a factor of 5. Here I'm missing the factor 4. Here I've got a factor of 4, so I'm missing a factor of 5. And we need to make sure that we do the top and bottom to keep the fraction balanced. And again, this is a plus in here, so we have to remember that plus and multiply don't interact well. We have to make sure we group this as a factor. So we end up with 4x over 20 plus, and I'm going to expand this out. This becomes 5x plus 10 all over 20. So these are the same original fractions. Now with the common denominator, I can count the numerator the same. So these x's I can group together as 9x plus 10 over the common denominator of 20. So here, by looking at this, we can see numerically the common denominator is probably going to be 30. Through the factors, we can see that it's going to be 30 because when I factor this, they both have a common factor of 2, but this one's missing a factor of 3, so I want to introduce that factor of 3 here. But I have to then balance with another factor of 3 here. Here I'm missing a factor of 5 to make my 30, so 6 times 5 gives me my common denominator of 30. And there it is. I need to make sure to do top and bottom to balance the fraction. And then now, with the common denominator of 30, I can now add those fractions together. Okay, and this one here just happens I can simplify this fraction to 7x over 15. Okay, so here, because the denominators are variables, now it starts getting a little bit more complicated. But again, if we understand this in terms of factors, we can see all that's happening here is this factor is missing a 2. That denominator is missing a factor of 2. Balance the fraction. I now have my common denominator. I get 4 over 2a. That's the same fraction, plus x over 2a. Now I can combine them together. Just remember that 4's and 1's and x's can't be counted together. So although the denominator is the same, I cannot actually combine the terms in the numerator, okay, because they are not like terms.